You are watching Hawaii. You don't want to miss Tony and Pat at the end of the show.
You are watching Hawaii Political Reporter.
Aloha, and thank you for watching Hawaii Political Reporter. Tonight, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We have powerful videos and interviews that will help you to consider the war issues, civil liberty issues, and whether you should vote third party in the presidential election. Thank you for watching, and now to it.
I left the Democratic Party and helped form the Justice Party because now the Republican and Democratic parties are simply one duopoly. They have a stranglehold on our electoral system from the stage of getting on the ballot all the way through the debate process. And they have both been bought and paid for by the same special interest. We have a plutocracy, not a democracy, in the United States, where our government is up for sale to the highest bidder. Romney would bring us along the same path that led to the economic disaster in 2008, with huge tax cuts for the wealthy, enormous deficits, low employment rates. And President Obama has a pathetic record. He's the only president that has presided over 3 years of unemployment of over 8%. It absolutely can be changed, but we know that that's what the American people want. It's simply that we don't have those elected to office that are willing to take on those special interests. That's why we have
life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. That's very powerful words, and that's really the fundamental reason we're producing this program, besides, of course, empowering people by giving them information that is not available. We're hoping and helping that they're going to get to the conclusions and information that they need to come to those conclusions for themselves. Life surely must be innocent life worldwide, not just in our country. And the United States, I believe, is perpetrating war crimes against many innocent people, including children. I don't know if I'm going to show it in this video, but please, if I don't, look up depleted uranium babies. If you're a skeptic of the internet and what you hear, that's fine. Go call a veteran, Veterans for Peace, talk to them. Let them tell you. Let them tell you what's happening, and let them tell you why the suicide rate is extremely high for our U.S. forces. Let them tell you. Just listen to them, please. Find the truth. The truth shall set us free.
What concerns me is that we have reports that depleted uranium is being used. We know that there are the missiles that are coming down, the bunker buster bombs that are being used. If depleted uranium is being used here, then everything that we see and breathe is contaminated. Actually, a member of parliament in the United Kingdom was the first person who mentioned the possible NATO use of depleted uranium that I am aware of. And since that time, I have spoken with some expert scientists who are familiar with the telltale signs of depleted uranium use. One is how the particulate matter tastes in your mouth, if there is a metallic taste. And of course, since I've been here and there have been a lot of bombings, I have asked around about the metallic taste. One of the persons that I brought with me is an attorney, and I asked him, and he specifically said yes, that he had a metallic taste in his mouth. I have not spoken to Libyan scientists who have officially confirmed that, but of course, if we look at NATO and their choice of weaponry, we know that NATO has used depleted uranium where? In Eastern Europe. They've used it in Afghanistan. They're probably using it in Pakistan. And why would they not use it here? This is another aspect of the NATO operation. And I'd like to stress this idea of collective punishment because, of course, we've heard of collective punishment in the context of Israel and its treatment of the Palestinians. But what we are seeing here is a kind of collective punishment as well, where NATO is preventing shipments of fuel and food and medicine to come in. There have been efforts to actually get medicine into the country that have been denied by NATO. Of course, it is impossible to go on any street and miss the huge queues of sometimes 3 and 4 deep of cars that go on for and on and on and on. as they queue up to get gasoline from the service station. This is a NATO policy, and this is also a policy of collective punishment. This is targeting the civilian population. And whenever you target a civilian population, you're committing a crime.
You've been able to speak to people, I guess.
Yes, I've spoken to people, and the one question that they ask me over and over and over again is why? That is the question. Why? And so when I go back to the States, I'm going to try and ask that question. Why? Why is this happening? Certainly, it is not for humanitarian reasons, because what is being caused by NATO is a humanitarian catastrophe.
Most knowledgeable people now recognize that the planned war against Syria is merely the next step to take on the Iranian government, something the neocons openly admit. Controlling Iranian oil, just as we have done in Saudi Arabia and we are attempting to do in Iraq, is the real goal of the neoconservatives who have been in charge of our foreign policy for the past couple of decades. War is inevitable without a significant change in our foreign policy, and soon. Disagreements between our two political parties are minor. Both agree the sequestration of any war funds must be canceled. Neither side wants to abandon our aggressive and growing presence in the Middle East and South Asia. This crisis building can easily get out of control and become a much bigger war than just another routine occupation and regime change that the American people have grown to accept or ignore. It's time the United States tried a policy of diplomacy, seeking peace, trade, and friendship. We must abandon our military effort to promote and secure an American empire. Besides, we're broke. We can't afford it, and worst of all, we're fulfilling the strategy laid out by Osama bin Laden, whose goal had always been to bog us down in the Middle East and bring on our bankruptcy here at home. It's time to bring our troops home and establish a non-interventionist foreign policy.
Number 2, liberty. Our liberties are under serious attack. Without having enough freedom for us to keep forces honest and true and supervised, okay, and transparent, we're not going to have any security. We're just simply going to be slaves. This has happened before. It's happening again. It may not even be directly noticeable. We are actually, in many ways right now, slaves. And I don't just mean in the obvious ways. If you truly understand our monetary system and understand that everything that with every dollar issued is as debt, okay, and it is paid to a private cartel, not to our government, that everyone in this country is working for and servicing 6 elite banks and their masters, you will understand something that is very powerful. It took me a while to get it. I only got it about a month ago myself. I'm very thankful for that. I highly suggest The Secret of Oz by Bill Stern and others to get you on to that, and you will see why the American Revolution happened and why we 5 times previously in this country have thrown off central banks that were owned by corporate financial interests. Quick note, I'm not at all against any corporation or any individual that is wealthy. God bless them, as long as it was made honestly and benefiting through some service, okay? Economics, we'll get into that later, about productive capitalism and financial capitalism and other than that.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The last nail is being driven into the coffin of the American Republic, yet Congress remains in total denial as our liberties are rapidly fading before our eyes. The process is propelled by unwarranted fear and ignorance as to the true meaning of liberty. It is driven by economic myths, fallacies, and irrational good intentions. The rule of law is constantly rejected, and authoritarian answers are offered as panaceas for all our problems. Runaway welfarism is used to benefit the rich at the expense of the middle class. Who would have ever thought that the current generation and Congress would stand idly by and watch such a rapid disintegration of the American Republic? Our presidents can now, on their own, order assassinations, including American citizens, operate secret military tribunals, engage in torture, enforce indefinite imprisonments without due process, order searches and seizures without proper warrants, gutting the Fourth Amendment, ignore the 60-day rule for reporting to the Congress the nature of any military operation as required by the War Power Resolution, continue the Patriot Act abuses without oversight, wage war at will, treat all Americans as suspected terrorists at airports with TSA groping and nude x-raying. And the Federal Reserve accommodates by counterfeiting the funds needed and not paid for by taxation and borrowing, permitting runaway spending, endless debt, and special interest bailouts. And all of this is not enough. The abuses and usurpations of the war power are soon to be codified in the National Defense Authorization Act, now rapidly moving its way through Congress. Instead of repealing the 2001 authorization for the use of military force, as we should, now that bin Laden is dead and gone, Congress is planning to massively increase the war power of the president. Though an opportunity presents itself to end the wars in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Pakistan, Congress, with bipartisan support, obsesses on how to expand the unconstitutional war power of the president he already holds. The current proposal would allow a president to pursue war anytime, any place, for any reason, without congressional approval. Many believe this would even permit military activity against American suspects here at home. The proposed authority does not reference the 9/11 attacks. It would be expanded to include the Taliban and associated forces, a dangerously vague and expansive definition of our potential enemies. There is no denial that the changes in Section 1034 totally eliminates the hard-fought-for restraint on presidential authority to go to war without congressional approval achieved at the Constitutional Convention. Congress's war authority has been severely undermined since World War II, beginning with the advent of the Korean War, which was fought solely under a UN resolution. Even today, we're waging war in Libya without even consulting with the Congress, similar to how we went to war in Bosnia in the 1990s under President Clinton. The three major reasons for our constitutional conventions were to guarantee free trade and travel among the states, make gold and silver legal tender, and abolish paper money, and strictly limit the executive branch's authority to pursue war without congressional approval. But today, Federal Reserve notes are legal tender, gold and silver are illegal. The Interstate Commerce Clause is used to regulate all commerce at the expense of the free trade among the states. And now, the final nail is placed in the coffin of congressional responsibility for the war power, delivering this power completely to the president, a sharp and huge blow to the concept of our republic. In my view, it appears that the fate of the American Republic is now sealed, unless these recent trends are quickly reversed. The saddest part of this tragedy is that all of these horrible changes are being done in the name of patriotism and protecting freedom. They are justified by good intentions while believing the sacrifice of liberty is required for our safety. Nothing could be further from the truth. More sadly is the conviction that our enemies are driven to attack us for our freedoms and prosperity, and not because of our deeply flawed foreign policy that has generated justifiable grievances and has inspired the radical violence against us. Without this understanding, our endless, unnamed, and undeclared wars will continue, and our wonderful experiment with liberty will end.
Okay, this video goes out to all of you Republicans, all of you Democrats, all of you liberals and conservatives who are genuinely convinced that these politicians in Washington really give a damn about you. Some of you guys want to know how come your Democratic president hasn't implemented the type of change that he promised. Some of you guys want to know how come George W. Bush wasn't a true conservative. And some of you guys want to know why both the Republicans and Democrats continue to support the corporate bailouts of big banks, the so-called too big to fail. Well, I went to opensecrets.org and I decided to copy and paste some things, and I wanted to just lay out why it doesn't matter who wins the election, okay? Because it doesn't matter how dark the skin color is of the candidate or the winner or the loser or whatever. It doesn't matter where they're from. It doesn't matter what their dad did, what their mom was, what religion. At the end of the day, what really matters is who owns these people. Obama and McCain, they're very different. Well, they both supported bailouts. I wonder why. Again, at the top of the list, University of California, top contributor, $1.59 million. Number 2, Goldman Sachs with almost $1 million. $1 million to Barack Obama. So I just had so much fun making this video because I just wanted to show all you guys who are so fiercely partisan just how much you really matter. Sorry, that was rude, but hey, why don't we just show a chart? No, why don't we just show a listing of all the top contributors for both the Republican and Democratic candidate in 2004 and 2008. And then I'm going to highlight in the red all of the Wall Street crowd, and I'll see if anybody can pick up a pattern here. Oh, man, I shouldn't be laughing, but I mean, this is sad. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And don't forget, the future belongs to those who pay off the politicians. I mean, for those who...
In a nutshell, I'd like to say, please, my personal opinion, please consider not voting for Romney. If you follow what he's done, and, you know, not that Obama is good, God knows. I can't, personally, I could never vote for either, but if I had to vote for the two, I would vote for Obama at this point, even though I was a conservative. Romney is, I'm going to say it, and I'm going to say it cleanly and clearly, he's an evil man. If you understand clearly what he's doing, who he's working with, listen carefully to the videos of him caught off camera and his motives. Just know to what Christ said, the love of money is the root of all evil. I think you'll learn a lot about Romney, okay? He may put on all the stars and stripes and all this, and Romney and Ryan may say they're going to cut the deficit, and they're going to save the country. They're full of BS, okay? They're no different than the other side of the aisle. They both want the money and the control. One has a little bit more, bleeds back to the people. The other one bleeds a little bit more up to their masters, a little more directly. So that's my opinion. Please seriously consider a third party, especially for the presidential election. It is not a vote thrown away, not a vote thrown away at all, especially if you're in a state where you know one side is going to win. For example, Illinois, Hawaii, Texas, you know who's going to win. If you don't know, please look up the Electoral College. It is not won by popular vote. If you don't know that, please check it out. Whoever wins the state, okay, the most of that state, that wins all the electoral votes. So it's not cumulative on a countrywide basis. It's cumulative on a state-by-state basis to total 270 electoral votes. Giving the vote to the honest third party will put pressure to do the right things on the others and may eventually, with a miracle in time, get us to honest third-party candidates who are allowed into the debate, because they have a difficult time now because the other two parties control all the money via their corporate sponsors, and the corporate sponsors control them. They make the laws for them. What's going on is a reverse Robin Hood, as probably a lot of us know now, and if you follow the money, you will see that.
Gary, why is libertarianism such an important vision for the country right now?
Well, what you did not hear in any of these debates is let's not bomb Iran. Let's get out of Afghanistan tomorrow, bring the troops home. Let's recognize marriage equality as a constitutionally guaranteed right. Let's end the drug wars, legalize marijuana now. Let's repeal the Patriot Act. I would have never signed the National Defense Authorization Act, allowing for you and I as U.S. citizens to be arrested and detained without being charged. Let's have a strong U.S. dollar. Let's have strong U.S. dollar policies, and let's start with balancing the federal budget. So I'm promising to submit a balanced budget to Congress in the year 2013. And then let's eliminate income tax, corporate tax. Let's abolish the IRS, and let's replace all of it with one federal consumption tax. In this case, I'm embracing the fair tax. I think it's really the answer to tens of millions of jobs being created in this country, because in a zero corporate tax rate environment, if the private sector doesn't create tens of millions of jobs, I got to tell you, nothing will create tens of millions of jobs.
Well, Gary, speaking of jobs, I mean, we just heard second round of debates from the two-party establishment presidential candidates last night. I wanted to play you one of the questions and get your take on it.
As a 20-year-old college student, all I hear from professors, neighbors, and others is that when I graduate, I will have little chance to get employment. What can you say to reassure me, but more importantly, my parents, that I will be able to sufficiently support myself after I graduate?
So aside from college graduates, which half are unemployed right now, 12 million plus Americans are jobless, and that doesn't even take into account the moonlighting, people who have multiple jobs to pay their rent, et cetera. So what is your plan, Gary, to help these people get jobs immediately?
In a zero corporate tax rate environment, if the private sector doesn't create tens of millions of jobs, I don't know what it takes. I see American manufacturing jobs. I see manufacturing jobs worldwide flocking back to this country in a zero corporate tax rate environment. And that happens because with a fair tax, with one federal consumption tax, what you're going to do is you're going to bleed all non-transparent federal tax out of goods and services. So when you do that, that's really the answer when it comes to American exports. It's the answer when it comes to China. It's that whole notion of manufacturing jobs flocking back to the United States.
So that will just be expected with the tax solution that you propose?
I'm sorry, say that
I said
again?
so providing jobs will just come with the tax solution that you're proposing?
Well, crony capitalism is alive and well in this country. I mean, both parties have their hand out for individuals, groups, corporations that want to buy loopholes. Let's do away with all the loopholes. Let's do away with all the deductions. Let's eliminate the IRS completely. That's what I'm proposing to do. I think that by adopting one federal consumption tax, I think we issue pink slips to half of Washington lobbyists because that's why they're there, to buy loopholes, and the loopholes are for sale. I don't think Republicans know the difference between corporate welfare and free markets.
I don't think they do either. And speaking of, you said, you know, all these things about the military that we're not hearing, the bases around the world. I saw on your website, I was looking for this and I didn't see it. Maybe you can enlighten me about what percentage you're proposing to cut from the Pentagon and military spending.
Well, I'm promising to submit a balanced budget to Congress in the year 2013. That would be a 43% reduction in military spending. Let me start with a premise here. We should and need to provide ourselves with a strong national defense. But defense is the operative word, not offense and not nation building. So a 43% reduction in military spending takes us back to 2003 spending levels. I think the biggest threat to our national security is the fact that we're borrowing and printing money to the tune of 43 cents out of every dollar that we spend. But a 43% reduction in military spending would be reducing nuclear warheads from 2,300 to 500. It would be reducing the military footprint. That would be bases that we have around the world, military in uniform in Europe, Japan, South Korea. It would be getting out from all of the military entanglements that we are involved in. Let's stop with the military interventions that have us as the world villain to hundreds of millions of citizens in other countries that, but for our military interventions, wouldn't otherwise exist. Research and development and intelligence are part of that component.
Gary, this is such a pivotal election. So many voices are ostracized from the narrative. What do you have to say to people who say that anything other than a vote within the establishment two-party system is a wasted vote?
I say that's your wasted vote. Voting for somebody you don't believe in. Vote for somebody you believe in. That's how you change the system. Ross Perot, as an example. Arguably, Ross Perot was singularly responsible for fiscal responsibility after that election. Arguably, he was responsible for the aberrations that occurred to allow Clinton to balance a budget or two.
What do you think the biggest misconception is about libertarianism?
Well, the notion that libertarians are survival of the fittest, you know, Darwinist. Look, we all have hearts and we care about people, but I think right now the biggest threat to our way of life is the fact that we're borrowing and printing money to the tune of 43 cents out of every dollar we spend. I think that what's going to happen mathematically is we're going to experience a monetary collapse. And a monetary collapse, very simply, is when the dollars that we have in our pocket don't buy a thing because of the accompanying inflation that goes along with this. So the biggest misconception about libertarians, look, libertarians with a broad brushstroke are fiscally responsible, period, passionately fiscally responsible. And then libertarians are about civil liberties, about military non-intervention, and passionately so on those topics. So I think what libertarians do is embrace the best of both parties. Democrats that are supposed to be good on civil liberties, they're not so good. Republicans that are supposed to be good on dollars and cents, they're not good on that at all. Combine the best, make them the best. I think that's what I'm representing right now. I wouldn't be running for president of the United States if I didn't think I could do a really good job. And I'd like everybody to check out GaryJohnson2012.com and take a look at the resume. There's nothing to suggest that I can't do this job. I think there's a suggestion that I can do a really good job at it.
And I do think the issue of the fair tax is a really interesting one, Gary. I implore everyone to check that out. But I wanted to ask really quickly, we have about a minute left. You call to abolish Obamacare completely, are also calling to block Medicare and Medicaid funding to states in order to allow for innovation. Do you think that health care is a right, and how can we ensure that these companies will be responsible for giving fair access to people and not be predatory? You have about 30 seconds.
Well, first of all, Medicare is a program that we're all contributing $30 to, and we're getting a $100 benefit. By extension, we're contributing $30,000 to a benefit that we're getting a $100,000 benefit from. That is absolutely unsustainable. And so when you have a debate over who's going to spend more for Medicare, we need to have a raging debate and discussion in this country on how we cut Medicare and still provide a safety net for those over 65. If we don't do it, no health care for anybody, because we find ourselves with a collapsed government due to monetary policy.
And the two of you agree that the voters have a choice between the two of you?
Wondering who to vote for when Romney and Obama agree on so many things? Remember, you do have other options come November 6th. Tune in to see the second round of debates between the major third-party candidates on October 30th.
Aloha, I'm Tony Sylvester. I'm a third-generation hunter and fisherman on the island of Hawaii here. And we're here today to help promote County Bill number 6. It's going to be on the ballot question. And it's going to be, shall the Hawaii County Charter be amended to create a Game Management Advisory Commission that would advise county, state, and federal agencies on matters related to the preservation of subsistence hunting and fishing, protecting of our traditional and cultural gathering rights, and the taking and conservation of aquatic life and wildlife. Please help support us by voting yes this November 6th. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Pat Pacheco. I'm born and raised on the island. I've been hunting ever since 1950. I just want to let you know that Tony had talked to you about the question 6. Well, I would like to tell you why this is not going to only affect just the hunters or the fishermen. This will affect the big island itself, the people. We use the mountain and the forest for supplemental food frequently, all our lifestyle. Generations we've been doing this. We go to the mountain, we go to the ocean. We share, we get the money together. Well, we've been invaded, not only by, as say, invasive species, we've been invaded by some foreigners that come to the island and trying to take everything away from us. People, I ask you, think about it, that we who live in Hawaii, we have our rights to fish and hunt. Why do we have to give these rights up or they take it away from us? They're not to take it away from us. Let us all stand together, whether you're a hunter or not. This is your island, our island. They want to live with us, live the way we live our lifestyle. Don't change our lifestyle. We want it this way. You don't like the way we live? Aloha. And by the way, you know what aloha means? Aloha means welcome. Aloha means goodbye. But in between that, it means respect. You come down here, you respect the people. The people respect you. When you don't respect us and you take away everything that we have from our lifetime, you know what's happening. This is why they're turning people against people. Why do you do that? We always live together in Hawaii. We had that all our life. Now we don't have it. Because why? Everybody come here and takes everything away from us with money, power. This is all it is. Money and power, it's all what it is. So people, please, not only for the hunters, not only for the fishermen, for our next generation, that they can enjoy the mountain and the ocean that was given to us. Remember, this is an island of volcano. Pele don't sleep. Akoa don't sleep. Thank you.
There's no more federal than Federal Express.
You try a hide and this show of freedom, man. You sick agenda, we know you anti-American. You come forward American Constitution. 1913, corrupt in the system. Devalue dollar, hyperinflation. The Federal Reserve, controlled by Lucifer. He can see you lying.